Well, hello everybody. Thanks for being watching this right now. So we can meet together in person due to the fact that the St. Denis library is being renovated, new carpets and all that. So the best way I thought this year to pass on the information to you was to do it in this way. So we can meet in person. I'd rather meet together as a group of parents there, so that we can talk about next year in Latin. But unfortunately, there's not a possible thing that we can do this year. So I hope that you have a good 20 minutes to listen to this. I will pass on very important information for your students to be on top of things, for you guys to know what to expect from my class and from what the students will bring home as far as workload and everything else. So please make sure that you listen to every single piece of information. Although some of you are returning to this class, some of the information will be similar to last year, but there's a couple of changes, especially that the book that we will be using this year was not the expected one, as we are going to do Latin first form next year instead of intro to Latin instead of Latina Christiana 2 that we were planning to do. So just stay tuned, and hopefully what I will cover with you will answer most of the questions that you might have show up at the beginning of the year or throughout the school year. For those who don't know me, my name is Cedric Ebiner, and I have taught Latin for almost 20 years now. I started teaching Latin at Loyola High School in 1998, and it will be my 20th year of teaching. I am still at Loyola High School, and I have taught Latin to homeschoolers for the past 13 years actually. So it has been a great experience teaching these classes, and we've been really lucky with the St. Denis Library hosting us for the past 10 years. So we hope that we can keep this relationship going. Just be on your best homeschooling behavior. They love to have parents and younger siblings use the library when the students are at class. So please feel free to use the premises and just be great homeschoolers, as I know you are, to make a great impression on the librarians that are there and have been having a great experience with our people. So this recording is really important, as I said before, because I will pass on some information about what I expect the students to be doing during the time that I don't see them, in the 2 weeks that separates the two classes. I will tell you what we are going to be doing during the classes, which books we will be using for learning Latin this year. I will also urge you to keep track of how often they do Latin, how much I expect to do Latin on a daily basis. So all of this is covered in the next 15 or 20 minutes or so that I will be speaking to you with this recording. At the end of this recording, I also have, for new families who have not had Latin yet with me, just a couple of pieces of information on why the study of Latin might be a good idea for any student out there who is wondering why study such a language. So first thing that I need to emphasize is the importance of being there at every meeting that is scheduled for us to be together to learn this beautiful language. We meet twice a month, so every meeting is very important. If you compare the time, how often we meet with this format, it's twice a month in comparison to what a student would do in an institutional school, where the student would meet 4 or 5 times a week with a teacher. It's really very far apart. So it is crucial for students to make it to class. Just imagine missing a class. The student will have just one 75-minute session interaction with the teacher. It's very, very little if class is being missed. Also be aware that we are in LA County. The traffic is bad, especially on Fridays, so just count with bad traffic. Plan to be at the library 30 minutes early. There's nothing wrong with being in the library early rather than late. There's plenty of quiet spots in the library when one can study. You can take a nap while you're waiting for me to show up, or do some last-minute study or revision or review before a class starts. So that's something that is very, very important to keep in mind, is that the meetings are important, and it's very important to be there on time. as we meet just so rarely, it's important also to think about your role as a parent in the study of Latin with your child. You may want to study Latin along with them and just follow, the same regimen as they follow for my class, and just do the exercises for yourself and with your child, and do the memorization for yourself and with your child. That's great, but you don't have to do that. You can just keep monitoring that the work is being done on a daily basis. Or if you trust your kid to be really independent and do their work well, there's no reason for you to be very much involved at all. But you know your kid better than I do, and you know how much involvement you need to have, since I'm involved only a couple times a month with them, and that's about it. Okay, so just think about this and see how you want to get involved with Latin next year. So as I said, we will meet twice a month. We will meet on the second and fourth Fridays of the month from 3:30 to 4:45. For those of you who were in Intro to Latin 1 last year, that's the same Fridays as it was. Same time as well, 3:30 to 4:45, about 75-minute classes for these students. We will meet on some fifth Fridays of the month, so keep an eye on the calendar that I will pass out on the first day of class to see which fifth Friday we will meet, in order to make up for some classes where we can't meet, like on Good Friday or some Friday during Christmas vacation that we cannot meet because of the festivities that are going on these days. Now, for this class, we will need 2 workbooks or 2 texts, 1 workbook and 1 student text. So that is entitled Latin First Form. So if you go to the website for Memoria Press, get your books from the website. That's where we'll get the right edition, and that's where the least confusion will happen in order to get the right books. So the first one is the student text for Latin First Form, and the student workbook that goes along with the Latin First Form text. So these are the 2 things that you will need, along with some binder or a notebook or something that the students will use in order to write things down during class with me. Okay, so as I said, on the first day of class, I will pass out a class calendar on which there will be some very, very important information, including the dates of the class meetings that you should transfer right away to your family planner or the planner that you use to plan all of your events of the year, so that then you know that on these Fridays you cannot plan anything else than Latin itself. Everything can be done on alternate Fridays or on other days where you're free, on Saturdays, on Sundays, but make sure that you don't plan or double book with Latin on Fridays. On this calendar, I will also indicate which pages need to be studied, what is the vocab that needs to be memorized, and all sorts of information. So this calendar, you may want to make a copy for yourself. The students should have it with themselves all the time in order to make sure that they organize their time to the best of their ability to complete all the material that is needed to be completed. The way I conduct class is like this. We start with a prayer in Latin, and throughout the year we learn 4 different Latin prayers, 1 per quarter. We'll start as a prayer, so we'll memorize we'll learn how to pronounce the prayer. We'll memorize it little by little as we get closer to the end of the quarter, and by the end of the quarter they should have it memorized. Then after this, what I will do, I will keep going with telling them stories about some famous men of Rome, which goes along with one other Memoria Press publication. I will go on with that. We left off in the middle of the Republic with some of our famous men this year, and we will keep going throughout the Republic, the late Republic, early Empire, and all the big names that everyone has heard about, including Julius Caesar, Constantine, Augustus, and Tiberius, and all the others. So we'll start with that to cover a little bit of history. Then we'll move on to the correction and questions of the exercises that were done during the 2 weeks preceding my class. So students can bring up questions about the grammar they did not understand, about exercises that were problematic, or I might actually bring up questions myself, where I will ask them to give me the answer to certain exercises and so on. So it's very important that they show up to class with their workbooks, with the exercises completed, so that when I ask them to give me some answers, they can just read what they wrote, in order for me to get a sense of how they managed their classwork, their homework. it's during that time that I get a kind of a feel on how comfortable they are with the material, how well they master it, how much work they've put in at home, and that interaction with them gives me a good gauge on how to give them a grade at the end of the term for their report card. Another thing that I use to give them a grade at the end of the term is the short quiz that I give after the questions and the exercises corrections that we do in class. Short quiz usually tests them on their memorization of vocabulary, their memorization of declensions or conjugation, as well as sometimes maybe some very short translations or something like this. So that short quiz comes towards the beginning of class. Another reason why you want to make it to class early is in order to not miss that quiz. That will also give me an idea of the kids' attendance. Then the bulk of the class is spent on the new grammar. After they're done with their quiz, which will not take more than 5 minutes, then I will unpack the grammar that they need to know for the next 2 weeks. So I will teach them the new grammar. I will ask them questions to test their understanding. I will answer their questions if they have any about this, and that will give them a good overview, and it's going to be a good introduction of what they will have to deal with for the next 2 weeks. However, it's important for them not to feel like, I've taught the grammar, that's it. They need to study the grammar on their own in their student text. Also, reread the few notes they might have taken during class in order for them to really feel comfortable and proficient with the work. Then, depending on how much time we have, we might do a sample of homework. In there I will ask them questions about such and such exercises to see how they are doing with the new material that I just presented. So we call that guided practice, where they can see how they feel, and I'm here to correct them if needed, or provide some feedback to let them know how they are doing with the work. Okay, so that's about how the class works out. They are out by 45. The library closes at 5, so we need to give the library 10-15 minutes to close down, and that's why we need to be out before 5 o'clock. So what do I expect from them at home? At home, they need to do the work every day. The Latin language, as well as any language, when you learn them, it's very important that the language is being worked on a daily basis. So 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, Latin has to find its place among mathematics and English and social studies right there at the top of the list, in order for the best experience to be had in this class. So 5 days a week of Latin. For this class, it's about 35-40 minutes, maybe 45 minutes of Latin every day, which includes some of the written exercises, but not only that, there will be time spent with their flashcards, with their memorization work of vocabulary or conjugation and declension. Maybe time also spent on Quizlet.com, which is a great tool online to use digital flashcards or games in order to do the memorization in a less painful way. Okay, so that's for the expectation of their work at home. For the practicalities now, the tuition for this class, I charge $175 for the year. If the families are able to complete the registration form and send us a down payment of $25 towards tuition by June 15th. Also by then, we need to receive a payment for insurance. At the time of this recording, I'm not exactly sure how much it's going to be. In the past, it has been around $25. We don't expect it to be more than $30 this year. We will let you know probably in the email that you have received, and the amount is already mentioned. So if you register by the 15th of June, then everything is hunky-dory with the payments. Now, if you register after this, it will be $25 added, so $200 of tuition plus the insurance that needs to be paid also in addition to the $200 tuition. So I do that in order for me to have a good idea of the rosters, the way things are going to look like, before we get too close to the summer and deeper into closer to the start of the school year. So that's for that. The other thing that I needed to mention also is that Loyola High School, the place I work, is also hosting SCRAM. SCRAM is the Southern California get-together of all Latin experts, Latin fans, Latin nerds, and their teachers. in order to celebrate the Latin language, the Roman culture, and it's a great fun event for junior high school and high schoolers to get together in order to do all sorts of fun things. So this will take place sometime in October. I will give you the date on the first days of class in order for you to see if you can fit that into your schedule and plan to attend on a Saturday of October. So that's for that. I hope I covered everything that pertains to the class. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email us or to call us, and then I can field your questions in that fashion. At this point, if you took my class last year, you can hang up, and I wish you a happy summer. If you have not taken my class last year, I'm just going to spend 5 more minutes just to talk about the advantages or the reasons why one would study Latin. So just a few things to mention about this. So people might ask, why are you studying Latin? Isn't that a dead language? Who studies Latin? Do you want to talk with the Pope? Is that the reason you're taking Latin? With many different reasons to take Latin, and in one reason that I often hear from people is that I want to improve my SAT scores, which is an interesting way to go, but it's shown that two students who take Latin actually have very high SAT scores that actually show scores that are higher than students who are taking French or German or Spanish as a foreign language. So that might be an interesting reason to take Latin, which is very practical. Another practical reason is that Latin is the foundation of many other languages, where there's actually 6 Romance languages that are derived from Latin. Obviously, Italian is one, French is another one, Romanian, Portuguese, and so these languages are actually a lot easier to study if you have the background in Latin. The vocabulary is going to be close to these, the structure of the sentences is going to be close to Latin. So if you have this background in Latin that you study in junior high and high school for maybe 2 or 3 years, and then in college you decide to take Italian, you might say, wow, that's really easy to learn. The reason for this is that they have the background in Latin that has already given you some very strong basis to learn these other languages. And so that's another practical reason. Other practical reasons I've heard is like, well, I want to become a lawyer, and in law there's many Latin expressions that I need to know, or the Roman law system might be something that gives you some insight on how laws are treated or executed or applied today, and there's some parallels that can be drawn. Also, some students who want to go into medical school are interested in taking Latin because there's so many Latin terms that are there for anatomy and things like this, and it is true, it's also a good reason. Same thing for other sciences, all the different names of animals have a scientific name that is in Latin, and sometimes it's interesting to see their Latin names to see what it tells you about these different species. So all of these are very interesting practical reasons, but sometimes I ask the people, well, maybe we should not look at what is Latin doing for you, which is a good thing to look at, but also you can ask the question, what is Latin doing to you? And that means, what effect does the study of Latin have on a student who studies Latin? Well, for one thing, it's a great tool in order to know the foundation of our Western world. America, Western Europe has so much that it owes to Latin, and it goes to the Roman heroes that our founding fathers that were so fond of and so very well versed and so knowledgeable of. That's just part of our heritage. The government, the way the government is organized, is so similar in many ways to the way the Romans and the Greeks organized their government. The values that we hold strong, Christian values, yes, but also values that were held by Romans before the Christian era started. So all these different things. You can also talk about architecture and many more things that are there, that just gives you a stronger foundation and a stronger grounding in the culture of the Western world by knowing the language and the culture of people who have given us a Western civilization. one thing that you might, as adults, want to read is a document called Theorem Sapientia. That was written by John the 23rd in the early 1960s, in which he extols the study of ancient languages and especially Latin. And it's a fantastic document that shows why everybody should be concerned about keeping Latin alive and studying it and knowing it for many different reasons. That includes cultural reasons and academic reasons, educational value of it, but also the value that you find for knowing Latin within the church itself. So I'll let you read it. If you find it online very easily, it's called Theorem Sapientia. It's on the value of Latin by John the 23rd. It's Saint John the 23rd now. And but I'm going to read you just two passages that are just beautiful passages that talk about Latin right here. From Theorem Sapientia, it says, "There can be no doubt as to the formative and educational value either of the language of the Romans or of the great literature generally. It is a most effective training for the pliant minds of youth. It exercises, matures, and perfects the principal faculties of mind and spirit. It sharpens the wits and gives keenness of judgment. It helps the young mind to grasp things accurately and develop a true sense of values. It is also a means for teaching highly intelligent thought and speech." So that's one passage right here that just gives you like, wow, this is great words, that are said about Latin and classical languages. The words like this are not, ever written by any saint or any popes about, Spanish or French or Mandarin Chinese, but that's, really something that pertains to Latin that John the 23rd is talking about. And the last paragraph that I usually give to read to my students and to parents is this one right here. It says, "It is a matter of regret that so many people, unaccountably dazzled by the marvelous progress of science, are taking it upon themselves to oust or restrict the study of Latin and other kindred subjects. Yet, in spite of the urgent need for science, our own view is that the very contrary policy should be followed. The greatest impression is made on the mind by those things which corresponds more closely to man's nature and dignity, and therefore the greatest zeal should be shown in the acquisition of whatever educates and ennobles the mind. Otherwise, poor mortal creatures may well become like the machines they build, cold, hard, and devoid of love." Well, here is the warning. Now we better study Latin or do something about safeguarding this language. And so I hope you sign up for the class. Send us your registration form and your payment by June 15th. And I can't wait to meet with you. I hope you have a great restful summer, and then we'll meet again early September to just have a great year of Latin with a Latin first form. So I hope to see you there. God bless. Goodbye.